Lynch, and you're in the studio with me. Well, I'm waiting for a painting to dry, so I've got an extra minute to share with you something really important: the brush. The most important tool of all the things that you have to work with to make paintings. This is the most, hands down, most important item. Now, if you're serious about the paintings you create, let's talk serious about the brush that you should have. I have and used for years lots of different brushes. In fact, the company that I was working with went out of business, and so I had to search for a couple years. I did a lot of testing. I looked at some of the old ones, so trust me, I have a lot of brushes to test. And I have found one that really works to my specifications, and that is the Renaissance Silver Brush Company. Has really amazed me. They've created and they have in their portfolio some great brushes. This one in particular is the finest because I use the edge. I use the side, the heel, the corner, the belly. I'm not just laying down a big wash, and I'll show you in a minute. I'll give you a couple of tips on how this brush can really do magic for you. But the most important element, it's 100% sable. It has a little extra length out. It's made really well. I mean, the double, triple crimp and glues, those are things that we shouldn't have to worry about. So I've tested it. I've waited a long time. I've made a decision. Silver brush, you made a great brush in the Renaissance. I can't go wrong with it. And now it's my brush. It's the last brush I'll ever select once again. I looked a step further because I do a lot of painting with a liner brush. I used to call it a rigger brush. It's a similar term, but really the correct term is a liner. It has a really even longer length out, and the point better than I even had before. I call it a needle point, not just a great point. I'll show you some of the great unique ways in which you can use that. So both of these, 100% sable, working out great. Now, you haven't seen me use round brushes very often. I just never got into being able to make them work as well as I could those other two. Well, they did something extra. They created a designer round with a little extra length out. So instead of a quick taper to the point, it has a slow taper to the point. And that means I can do more things with it. So I paint with the side, not just up in the air. And I'll show you, I'll give you some demonstration. This painting is still drying, so I can take a minute, grab a sheet of paper, and share with you the designer round, which happens to be 50% synthetic, and the other half, and that's an important element, is to make sure you have that sable characteristic so it holds a lot of moisture. 3 times the amount. Could you imagine that? 3 brushes equals to what 1 brush can hold in moisture and pigment. So it can lay it down, it can keep on going, makes a big difference. And I was surprised. I've rethought about using a round brush once again. Let me grab a sheet of paper. I'll have you look over my shoulder and share with you a few of the characteristics and how I make a brush perform. Because as I've said, if you're serious about your paintings, let's get serious about your brush. Watch this. Now I can show you a few characteristics that what I've been talking about, and it's more exciting, I think, to see the brush in action. So the beauty of this brush is it has a little extra length out, and it has this belly. I've been talking about that belly quite a bit. That's a thickness. So a lot of brushes just come from the ferrule, you know, in a straight line to the edge. But there's a little extra thickness in this brush. So it's going to hold, look at that juicy amount of paint that it holds. But now I can lay the brush just on its belly, and I can quickly do a dry brush. Or if I wanted to use its edge, so now I'll hold the brush straight up and use its edge. Look at that sharp chiseled point where I can do some great little suggestions. Or now I can hold the brush and use the side of the brush. Look at the texture and contour that I can achieve for the roundness of a tree trunk. I have to do that again. I don't think you're going to believe that. So I'm painting with the side of the brush. I've loaded the brush up, and so I can go back and forth. Now I'm going to get a little different color. Now I'll use the corner of the brush, and look at how I can have a lot more characteristics. Sure, I can switch to a round, or I can switch to that liner I've talked about, and I will, but I love the beautiful little unique characteristic that you can achieve by using other parts of the brush. So I'll come back and do a little negative painting. That's the beauty of, watch as I bend this brush, look how it bounces back. So I can cut in some areas, do a little dry brush there, come back in, and now I'm treating it, and I'm using the side of the brush. Using the brush as if it were a round brush. So a little color change. Always like that variety of color. A little extra contrast. And so just the small little aspects, you know, of the brush where I can use. And watch this. I will point the brush, and now just the corner. Look at how beautiful. I'll go over here, you can see it better. Look at the tiny little, unique little leaf mark that I can make. So I'm pressing the brush, I'm reforming the brush so it has its wonderful flat square shape again. And just the corner to just do some of those delicate little sizes. So I could lay it off and then do the dry brush once again. So there's an example of all the different marks that a brush can do. I'll grab some other paint once again. Look at how I'll capture that wonderful suggestion of, you know, pine tree up in the distance. Just that tapping motion. But I'm not going to run out of paint. I have such a large belly, such a large reserve waiting, so that I don't have to reload and then change the color or change the consistency. And so I can continue with a rhythm flowing and painting once again. Come back over there, you know, modify this or that. Here I'll share with you another part of the brush. So I'll take the brush now, again shape and form it, so I'm pressing it against, I can give it a little wiggle, and now I can capture a little different thickness. And so I can flare the brush, I can widen those hairs a little bit, and I can have a little, you know, pattern, that old, weathered old building. Let me grab some other paint again, a little different color. Once again, I will take a sponge, let me bring a sponge into view, and then dry it out, and then I'll press it down, wiggle a little bit, and now it's like a fan brush. Look at the textured, weathered look that I can achieve. Again, it's that same, in this case, a 3/4 inch flat. There's that Renaissance. Now I have a few spots here and there. I'll use just the corner of the brush. I'm grabbing another color. Just come in and let the corner of the brush suggest a shadow or two. I like the idea of starting loose with the painting. You know, just a hint of a, you know, a window or a door. Don't need to paint it all. But now I'm just using the corner of the brush to suggest that. I'll come back in and once again and suggest or paint around the suggestion of a fence post. Blend this in. Now the bottom of the fence post, I'll make it darker so I can play that wonderful positive and negative game in my art. And here I can get a thin and then a thick look to the shadow. So I'm starting with the corner, then pressing a little harder, and so I can achieve such a more interesting thick and thin variety for things like shadows. Mountains, same idea. Start with the corner and then press down. I think I'll change to a little more blue in the color at this time. So once again, I'll start in the corner and then press thick. Oh, I think I dried out the brush. Got some paint there. Thick and thin. And so here I'm using just that same brush, getting all of these different brush mark characteristics. I like tapping and throwing paint for just a little bit of texture that I can achieve. Because of the amount of paint that it holds, I get a nice splatter. I get even extra splatters everywhere. And so I'll turn that into a tree there. And that one we'll make into a bird or two. Yes, I could have protected that and put a towel there and avoided the splatters, but I don't have to worry that much. So now I just want some texture. I want the side of the brush just to give a little rough texture mark. So see how I'm using the edge, the side, the heel, and the corner. Here's an area where I've loaded the brush with paint, and I'm going to start off with these rocks using that wonderful textured effect. Then I can bring the brush upright and use the corner to capture a little more chiseled pattern. I'll be right back, just getting a little color change. Coming back in here, these colors are a little bit of Holbein's cobalt blue, a little permanent magenta, and a burnt sienna. And so I can have the essence of the rocks to begin with. Come back in here and paint around, get a little contrast up against that rock area and the forest area that's behind. But see how I'm able to get rough textured and clean and smooth and continuous. There's that flow I talked about. How I can gather a nice continuous flow. Look at how I started this particular brush mark way over here and then was able to continue it. I haven't gone back to get more paint. That's the amount of paint that this brush, can hold, and it can do wonderful things for you. The suggestion of reflections. Look at how I'll shape the brush and then I'll wiggle the brush left and right and left. So for reflections, these rocks, the weathered old building, several different kinds of trees, tree trunks, water. So now you can see what I can do with a single, in this case 3/4 inch Renaissance made by Silver Brush Company. Can't say enough. Let the example speak for itself. A lot of different brush marks that you can make with just all the different parts of a well-made quality brush. I have developed brush sets both for the studio, plein air, and even workshops. Be sure to see my demonstration of the liner brush and the designer round in my other videos. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.